3. On page 318, between lines 11 and 12, insert the following.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent further readings of the amendment be suspended.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, the amendment is very simple. It prohibits, as recommended by the President, the use of funds under this Act to carry out the Brownfields Economic Development Initiative grant program that is administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. In May of this year, President Obama released a list of 121 programs that he recommended be terminated or reduced. One of the programs the President recommended for termination is the Brownfields Economic Development Initiative. The administration stated specifically that this grant program is extremely small relative to other programs that address this need. They added that local governments have access to other public and private funds that can address the same purpose. In justification for the termination, the administration wrote, and Mr. President, I quote from the document, Terminations, Reductions, and Savings, Budget of the U.S. Government Fiscal Year 2010, that is issued by the Office of Management and Budget. In other words, it's a number of terminations and reductions that the administration wants carried out with justification for doing so. And you know, so far, I've had amendments on several of these, and they've all been overridden, and our amendments have not been carried. So the moral of the story is, and I would imagine that I'll lose this amendment also, but the moral of the story is, why did no one stop this? Because clearly it's being totally disregarded by the appropriators. American people, I think, pay attention to the President's recommendations, but now I've had a number of amendments that have been in keeping with the President's request. The same President that said we go line by line in the appropriations bills and eliminate those that are unnecessary. Well, again, the Office of Management and Budget has said the Brownfields Economic Development Initiative is a competitive grant program whose purposes are served through much larger and more flexible federal programs. BEDI is designed to assist cities with the redevelopment of abandoned, idled, and underused industrial and commercial facilities where expansion and redevelopment is burdened by real or potential environmental contamination. These funds are targeted for redevelopment of brownfield sites for the purpose of economic development and job creation. And then they go on to say, while these are very important objectives, the program is very small and local governments have access to other public and private funds, including the much larger CDBG Community Development Block Grant. The 2010 budget funds Community Development Block Grant at $4.5 billion, or 14% above the 2009 enacted level. Here we are talking about trying to reduce spending, and the CDBG program is now 14%, $4.5 billion above the 2009 enacted level. In 1999, the Government Accountability Office report found that about $469 million was planned and $413 million in federal funds were obligated for brownfields activities in 1997 and 1998. Of the planned total BEDI appropriations, $25 million contributed just 5% of the planned expenditure. By terminating this program, the Department of Housing and Urban Development is also able to reduce the administrative workload associated with managing a small and duplicative program. Focusing staff on higher impact and higher return activities is a priority for the agency. Again, I quote from the Office of Management and Budget. I'm sure that the opponents of the amendment will argue. They'll argue that the Senate didn't include funding for this program in the underlying bill. In fact, the committee report states, quote, the committee does not recommend an appropriation for the Brownfield redevelopment program consistent with the budget request. The committee notes that other federal appropriations are available for the same purpose through the Environmental Protection Agency. Communities may also use CDBG funds to develop brownfields sites. That's the committee report. And then, if you look into the legislation, you will see the committee report also contains 3 specific earmarks totaling $1.3 million for the redevelopment of brownfields properties as economic development initiatives. It makes no sense. So in here, despite the committee saying that they're eliminating the program, we have $600,000 for the redevelopment of brownfields property into a business park in Cincinnati, Ohio, $500,000 for the redevelopment of brownfields properties in Waterbury, Connecticut, $200,000 for brownfield redevelopment in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So here we are, unemployment approaching 10%. The deficit for this year is estimated to be $1.6 trillion. The projected 10-year deficit jumped from $7.1 trillion to $9.1 trillion. Our public debt is expected to reach $12.1 trillion by October. And when's it going to stop? When is it going to stop? So again, I urge my colleagues to listen to the American people. The American people are rising up everywhere. And although it is a bit derided and underestimated, the tea parties and the demonstrations and the marches last weekend, at conservative estimates, 70,000 people came from all over the country to march. Yuma, Arizona, 1,000 to 2,000 people decided to demonstrate, and it's still pretty warm in Yuma, Arizona at this time of year, and all over my state. And so what do? We say we're going to terminate a program in the committee report, and then, of course, we cannot resist the earmarks and the pork barrel spending, which has led to corruption. There's a trial going on right now, Mr. President, on a trial of a lobbyist who some years ago engaged in paying off legislators for earmarks. That person, if convicted, will be the 23rd person convicted or pled guilty in the Abramoff scandal. And I'd like to tell the American people that things have improved, since the Abramoff scandal broke and people pled guilty and went to prison. But I can't tell them there's been any improvement. I can't tell them that corruption doesn't go on here in Washington. I can't tell them that there's no more Duke Cunninghams out there who are residing in federal prison. And you know what? They're sick and tired of it. This is only $1.3 million. That's less than chicken feed around this place. But we got to start somewhere, and we might start with implementing the recommendations of the President of the United States and the Office of Management and Budget, and get rid of a program that is obviously unneeded. So, Mr. President, I don't want to take too much more time of the body, except to again say there's a peaceful revolution going on out there, and it isn't just over health care reform. It's over the out-of-control spending and the trillions and trillions and trillions of debt that we have laid on future generations. Our children and our grandchildren are inheriting an unsustainable situation while we do business as usual here in the United States Senate. I could go back to Coast Guard vessels that the Coast Guard and the Navy never needed. I can go back to museums that were funded and are now closed all over America, and a lot of the other abuses that have taken place. But I hope my colleagues will vote in favor of this amendment. And those that don't, I hope that people at home will pay attention to the out-of-control spending that continues here and the mortgaging of our children's futures and what we're doing in the commission of generational theft. Mr. President, I yield the floor. I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be.